I went from lifting patients to designing systems that help doctors and nurses, and the salary increase will shock you. Years ago, my workday looked completely different. I was a registry nurse, which meant I was constantly moving between different hospitals, lifting patients, running between rooms, and coming home with my back aching and my feet screaming. I remember one particularly brutal shift where I lifted a 300-pound patient 6 times in one day because the mechanical lift was broken. My back was shot, my uniform was soaked in sweat, and I was making about 28 bucks an hour for destroying my body. Now, I design digital systems that make healthcare work better. I work from the comfort of my home office and I make 3 times what I used to make. Same clinical brain, completely different application. Let me tell you about how I discovered this opportunity because it started with understanding a pattern that's been happening in healthcare for the last 20 years. You see, when electronic patient records first came out, they were disasters. Epic, Cerner, all these companies built systems that looked amazing to hospital executives, but were nightmares for nurses and doctors to actually use. Documentation that used to take 5 minutes suddenly took 20 minutes. Critical information got buried in endless clicks. Nurses who were spending more time staring at screens than looking at patients. But here's what these companies learned the expensive way. They had to hire clinical professionals to fix their broken systems. They started paying nurses and doctors 100,000, 150,000, even 200,000 to redesign workflows and make their software actually work in real healthcare settings. Fast forward to today, and this pattern is everywhere. Every major healthcare technology company now has entire teams of clinical professionals who design, implement, and optimize their systems. I currently hired people to work as clinical systems designer for a healthcare technology company. My old job was to take complex clinical workflows and turn them into digital systems that actually made sense to healthcare workers. Now I hire more people to do the same. When a hospital wants to implement new technology monitoring systems, they call me. When a clinic needs to redesign their documentation workflows, they call me. When a healthcare startup needs to build a new app, they need someone who understands how nurses and doctors actually work. And here's the key. They're not paying me for my technical skills. They're paying me for my clinical expertise applied to technology problems. The skill that makes clinical professionals so valuable in technology isn't programming or engineering. It's something called workflow translation. I can take a messy, complicated clinical process, like how nurses manage medication administration during shift change, and explain it clearly to engineers who've never set foot in a hospital. I can look at a software design and immediately spot why it won't work in real patient care. I can see when a time-saving feature will actually create more work, or when safety alerts will cause alarm fatigue. This ability to bridge clinical reality and technical possibility, that's what companies are paying premium salaries for. Because they've learned that brilliant technology is worthless if healthcare workers can't or won't use it. Now, here's where this gets really exciting. Everything that happened with electronic patient records is about to happen with healthcare AI and robotics, but on a much bigger scale. Hospitals will be implementing surgical robots and AI that need to integrate with existing OR workflows, medication dispensing robots that have to work with nursing routines, patient transport robots that need to navigate around real clinical teams. And just like with electronic records, engineering companies are going to build these systems without understanding how healthcare actually works. They'll create robots that look impressive in demos, but fail miserably in busy hospitals. But this time, the companies that learned from the electronic records mistakes will hire clinical professionals from the beginning. They'll pay even higher salaries because the stakes are bigger and the market is exploding. So how do you go from lifting patients to designing systems? It's not as complicated as you might think. First, start thinking of yourself as a workflow expert, not just a clinical worker. Every day in the hospital, you're problem-solving complex processes, managing multiple priorities, and making systems work under pressure. Second, you learn basic technology concepts, not programming, just understanding how digital systems work and how they can solve clinical problems. Third, start looking for companies that value your clinical expertise in technology roles. These aren't traditional tech companies. They're healthcare technology companies that have learned they need clinical professionals to succeed. Now, let's talk about that shocking salary increase I mentioned. As a registry nurse, I was making about $70K a year if I really busted my hump. And that was with picking up extra shifts whenever I could. As a clinical systems designer, my base pay was 120,000, but here's where it gets interesting. I also started consulting work with other companies, which brought in another 60K. So I went from 70K to over 200K in less than 3 years. And I'm not unique. Clinical professionals in healthcare technology are some of the highest paid people in the industry. But the real benefit isn't just the money. It's that I'm helping thousands of patients indirectly through better systems instead of just a handful that I could care for during each shift. Here's what most clinical professionals don't realize. We're sitting at the beginning of the biggest transformation in healthcare that we've ever seen. Electronic records were just the beginning. Robotics, AI, automation, all of this technology will reshape how healthcare works, and every single implementation will need clinical professionals who understand how to make technology work in real healthcare settings. The companies that figured this out early with electronic records are now worth billions. The companies that will figure it out with robotics and AI will be worth even more. And they'll all need clinical professionals who can bridge the gap between technology and patient care. I was consulting with a hospital that was implementing a new patient monitoring system. The nurse manager told me, "This is the first technology implementation that actually makes our work easier instead of harder." It hit me there again. My journey from lifting patients to designing systems isn't just about my career transformation. It's about making healthcare work better for everyone who's still at the bedside. The technology I help design today will make tomorrow's nurses and doctors more effective, less frustrated, and more focused on patient care. My clinical expertise, applied to systems design, is creating better working conditions for thousands of healthcare professionals. So if you're watching this thinking, I want to stop destroying my body and start using my clinical brain, here's what you need to know. This transformation is happening right now. Healthcare technology companies are desperately looking for clinical professionals who can help them avoid expensive mistakes of the past. They're offering salaries 50 to 150% higher than traditional clinical roles, remote work options with flexible schedules, and the opportunity to impact thousands of patients through better systems. Career growth potential that doesn't exist in traditional healthcare. The electronic records industry learned that they needed us the hard way. The robotics and AI companies are learning this lesson right now. The question is, will you be ready when they come looking for clinical expertise? If you're serious about making this transition, you don't have to figure it out alone. I've created a comprehensive guide that shows you exactly how to position your clinical experience for healthcare technology roles. It includes real job descriptions, salary ranges, the companies that are hiring clinical professionals right now, and the exact steps that I took to go from registry nursing to systems design. Comment systems below and I'll send you the link. Also, subscribe because I share new opportunities in healthcare technology each week. Your clinical expertise is incredibly valuable. You just need to know where to apply it. The technology revolution in healthcare isn't happening without us. It's happening because of us. Are you ready to stop lifting patients and start lifting the entire healthcare system through better technology?